In May 2024, Nikita Buyanov, lead dev of Battlestate Games, posted this poll where the community on Twitter voted Lighthouse as the map most needing an expansion or a rework. This is Tarkov's most hated map overall, so today we're going to fully break down Lighthouse, bringing together both PMC kill quests like Punisher Part 4 that I get asked about daily, as well as item find quests such as Virtex and COFDM radios. Okay, so to get started, we are using Tarkov Companion and the maps within it because it's very easy to scroll around the maps. This is made by Tristan and an app that I've shown previously on this channel. It's very useful, shows spawns and a few other things. Now, Lighthouse itself has got three broad points of interest. You have the water treatment facility over here, you have the chalets over here, and you have the lighthouse, the actual one where Lightkeeper is over there. Now, it really is only two because most people do not have access to the lighthouse. This is full of claymores, and unless you have the special dongle that allows you to go over here, you can't get access. So most of the time, people are playing in this area of the map. As such, this means the flow of the map is typically from south, which is this edge down here, up to north, which is over here by the train station and water treatment facility. It's important to remember that this map is kind of like flipped sideways, but most people look at it this way because it's easier to look at it in landscape than it is vertically. For most of the map, outside of water treatment and a bit of village, there are three broad lanes. You have the lane along the beach area, this side, with very little cover and very few buildings. You have the chalets side up here, all the way along the back, and between the southern chalet and the northern chalet, otherwise called upper chalet and lower chalet, because this one's on the hill and this one's down in the ground. And then you also have the main path through the road itself, which is practically suicide to go down, so nobody ever does this except for player scavs who are just kind of AFK farming without really thinking about it. This particular map flow is one of the reasons why Lighthouse is the way it is and why people dislike it so much. And to talk about that, we're going to have to talk about spawns. So here you can see all of these yellow points are the PMC spawns on the map. They're not 100% exactly correct. I think this one is maybe a little bit further down here, for example, but these are pretty much all the ones that you're going to get. Now, if we start from kind of the most notorious one and move up to some of the better ones, this one here is called the Southern Road spawn. That is because the Southern Road extract is over here. This extract is always open, by the way, but we'll talk about extracts in a moment. And the reason why people don't really like Southern Road is that although you're not necessarily in danger straight away, the only options that you have is to just enter one of these three lanes from the beginning. So you either have to go down the beach or really up through the chalets. And the problem is that there's other people in the way. It's a little bit like that shoreline spawn down by Road to Customs in the corner. There's just people all around you. This means that if you get lucky, everybody else moves this way to the north and you kind of just trail in behind. The worst case scenario is that some of these people actually camp some of these locations, either sitting on rocks over here and looking at this section, sitting up here and looking down at the points over here. Because you can go either this way up the mountains or down this way, but people can just wait for you. And this is kind of the issue with the map in general. It really incentivizes players to sit around and wait for more people to turn up rather than actually going anywhere, because there's just not really many places that you can actually go. Again, you're like restricted to these lanes. Crossing over the road is quite hard in most places except for pretty much up here, and so this would make Southern Road quite difficult. Now, the fact that this extract is always open, a lot of people literally just turn around and go straight out the extract. They loot the couple of buildings here. There's a few little loot points here inside the buildings, like a jacket and a few loose spawns of ammo, and then they just go straight out, which is a real shame because Lighthouse is one of those maps that really suffers from load times, partly because there are so many textures. It's one of those maps that's very heavy on VRAM for your graphics card, and so it means that on some slower PCs, it takes an eternity to load. It is not unheard of to be waiting for 6 or 7 minutes from start to finish when you press the match button to actually get into the raid. So to then turn around, go straight out, spend a minute getting out of the raid, and then queue straight back up into another raid, which might take you 7 minutes to get back in again. It's like 15 minutes before you even actually get to play the game, which is why I really hate doing this, but I have started doing it a little bit recently because you are at a massive disadvantage being at Southern Road. If you do want to play this spawn, you can just run straight up the mountains and try to be careful of this spawn point here as they curl around, and this spawn point here if they've either double backed or stayed still, or even if they're just in chalets and waiting for you. Or alternatively, you can come all the way around the back here and then path along the beach, depending on what you want to do, but this route is pretty tricky. The next couple of spawns are this one here. This one is pretty much the one that's closest to Lighthouse. This has got a similar vibe to this one, except you actually have less options. Crossing the road here is quite tricky because the Southern Road spawn can technically run up onto the mountains and just be on Overwatch. They can see you running over the river quite easily, and the same with this spawn here. They can see you if you run across here and they just decide to sit and camp. So this one, and then also this spawn tunnel. This one is the tunnel co-op extract, which you're basically never going to use because you need to team up with a scav. It doesn't really happen on Lighthouse. It's also kind of in the wrong place for extracting because the road camp's over here and that's where all the scavs want to be, and they have extracts elsewhere that they're just not going to come back over here. So these two spawns are just like super dangerous, and you either just want to like chill for a bit, or this one, sometimes I like to loop up and just like try and run up here as quickly as I can. This does sort of depend on whether you're playing day or night as well, but it really is not ideal, and especially because these are so static, people just sort of know where you're going to be. Now, getting into these spawns, these ones aren't too bad because at least you have somewhere to move. You know that you can kind of go a bit further up here without necessarily bumping into somebody straight away. There is a spawn point over here by this piece of loot here, the Merin car trunk key that we'll talk about a little bit later. And by the way, just for reference, this rock here is what people call the stupid rock. There's lots of different names for it. But this is the one that's like the most obvious massive rock on the western side of the map that allows you great oversight, but lots of people know you're there. So if you go up there, often you just get shot. So these people sometimes can wait around here. If I'm in that spawn, typically I'll like to run over the road, and sometimes you get this one. I don't know if you can get both these at the same time. Like, you probably can. Often you actually can in Tarkov. But yeah, with this one, usually you can run up to here, and it's a little bit less obvious what you've actually done and like where you're going. But you only really have one route, which is like round this corner. It is a bit more of a fair fight because they're not necessarily in cover, and other than Merin, there's not really anything there. So people are typically either moving this way or they're trying to get into road camp or something. So usually you don't have a fight here, but sometimes you do if someone's pathing back for some specific task or something like that. This spawn point up here I really like because you can just run straight into the upper chalet and loot it. The upper chalet is really good for loot, as we'll see later on one of the loot runs. So this one's a great one. This one here as well is really good for the lower chalet, and then to clear into the upper chalet if you want. You can go and sort of contest this person if you want to. I usually run into the lower chalet because there's two safes in here that are useful. This spawn point there is quite good for getting into the road camp because you can go straight over the road. And this is the typically preferred route into the road camp, is using this bridge over here. So you can like walk in here. And the reason why is on this side, it's just a little bit more tricky. There's more mines and that kind of thing. But here there's a fence that goes all the way along here. You can't see it on the map. There's a fence that goes all the way along. I'm sure you know this if you played Lighthouse a little bit. This fence goes all the way along and up here as well. And that basically just covers you from all the various rogues on the buildings and makes it really easy to start. Most of the guides to the rogue encampment start over here on this particular bridge for that reason. There is another spawn point up by past the shoreline and one more up here. When these two kind of contest for the village as well, these guys normally move across this way and have to be careful about this spawn. This particular pairing is one of the most notorious on the map because this spawn usually spawns a little bit further up here, and you can just peek out here and have a fight. Like, I've had a fight with a 3-man up here, and vice versa. These people can fight this person as well. So it depends. Like, these guys, often they will like turn around and just like run straight into the rogue encampment. You can kind of go like back around this way, or you can loop around trying to avoid the claymores. I get blown up on them all the time because I just keep forgetting where they are. But you go this way and you can go into the rogue camp that side as well. So there might be some spawn fights, but these spawns are typically seen, this one in particular is seen as the best one because you can just get into the rogue camp nice and quickly. Now let's just go through all of the extracts just for a moment, just so we're understanding exactly where we are. As I said before, Southern Road is one that is always open, but it is miles away from the road camp, so that's why it's typically much less taken, but it's always open for everybody, even the people who spawn right next to it, which is quite unusual. It's a little bit like Path to Lighthouse on the shoreline side, which is this, and corresponds with this extract, Path to Shoreline, which is another one that's open all the time. Doesn't matter where you spawn, you can always go here. This is one of my favorite ones because it's in the middle of the map, it's not that far from the road camp, it's decent if you're at chalets, you know, it's kind of just in the middle of everything, which is good. And then there's one other one, which is this one here, the Northern Checkpoint, which is open for everybody, except if you spawn at this one, and I think this one only, maybe this one. Just make sure you check your extracts if you spawn really far up towards the rogue encampment, because sometimes you don't have Northern Checkpoint. It's almost always open for all of these spawns, except for 1 or 2, and it's really unfortunate. If you are banking on it, you forget, and you come up here. Now, Lighthouse is really weird, because it's got 4 conditional extracts. The first one we talked about here, which is the side tunnel, where you need a scav to go with you. This one's just not going to happen, so let's just forget about it. We've got this one, which is the Chalet Looter's Dream. This is the Red Rebel extract, so as usual, you need a Red Rebel ice pick and your melee slot, and you also need a paracord with you. Neither of them get used up, but you need to have your body armor slot free. You can wear an armored rig, because that just goes in the rig slot, so an AACPC or a TacTech or something like that, an MMAC, they will work and allow you to extract out of here, but you can't wear something like a Corund or a 6B23 or any of those armors that actually go on that body armor slot. Any of them need a separate rig, and you need to get rid of that armor before you go through. You can take it in your bag, so not all hope is lost, but you either want to take it in your bag and replace the loot that was in there, or you want to throw it down in a bush or something to insurance fraud it, and then go out of this mountain pass extract. So this is really good if you're looting the chalets. We've got the other extracts up here. One is the military base vehicle extract. This is just like the normal ones on customs or woods, where you pay the vehicle and it takes you out. It's actually relatively safe because there's not that many sight lines here. There's like some rogue stuff over here. There's a guy on a gun over there, but typically if you can get all the way around the back here, you can just like take this. Although because it's a bit far out of the way, I tend not to do it that much. And then there's one more, which is this one, the PMC armored train extract. Scavs can do this as well. So this one, the train arrives towards the end of the raid. On arrival, it'll honk twice. It stays around for 7 minutes, and 1 minute before departure, it'll honk once, and then the doors will close, and then the extract will start. So you'll be able to leave out there. So there's lots of conditional extracts on this map, but a lot of people mostly end up using the Northern Checkpoint if you're over at Road Camp, The path to shoreline if you're kind of around here and you didn't bring Red Rebel, Southern Road if for some reason you're down this end or you're visiting Lightkeeper, or the Mountain Pass if you're mainly looting chalets. Before we go on to the specific locations, let's talk a little bit about Punisher Part 4, because that's one of the reasons why I made this video in the first place, because so many people keep coming into my stream and asking me. I get at least one request a day asking how to do Punisher Part 4, how do I play on Lighthouse, and how do I actually finish this task, because now that it's on Lighthouse, it's so much more difficult to kill PMCs, and a lot of people just want to snipe and try and get it done that way, but it just takes so long, and so I think you're better off trying to combine both a loot run and a PMC kill run at the same time, shorten your distance down to close combat, and typically that ends up working out better. You end up finding more PMCs, you find more loot, and you're not just spending most of your Tarkov playtime sat around waiting for people to cross your path to try and do it in a safe way. And I think this is the best way to do it. You do have some quest limitations, so in terms of the weapons that you need to bring, this is determined by the scav vest that you have to wear. So you have to wear a scav vest and any balaclava. You can also wear the security vest as well, not just the scav vest, so those are cheaper sometimes, so you can go and buy those. If you want to wear the scav vests, then typically you'll be better off doing a slickers barter. You can make slickers in the hideout if you want to, but buying a slickers and bartering it for a scav vest is usually the best option. If you don't have the Unheard edition, like I don't, then you will only have 1x1 pockets. So this means that in order to take magazines, you have to have something that's going to be like one in the gun and one in the rig if you want to take anything that is 2x1. This means that normally weapons that have 60 rounders that fit in a 2x1 slot are some of the best. So you could do that with certain SMGs, but the 545 AKs are pretty good for this kind of thing because you can buy the 60 round box magazines, so ammo really isn't a limitation. You can get away with it with some other guns. If you want to go semi-auto and do something like the SR25 or any of the 51 NATOs, you can have like 2 mags there because you're in semis, it's not as bad. But I personally think that full auto and being closer range with something like an AK is better. You could do other things like the P90 as well. It's also technically an option. Have some extra mags in your bag in theory. But I think the 545 AKs would probably be the most budget option to do this with, or alternatively something like an M4 because you can get the 60 rounders in there. G36C, anything that's going to take those big 60s if you have access to those. If you're not doing Punisher and you're doing either other quests or you're trying to do assessment or something like that that requires PMC kills but doesn't specify anything about the kit that you need to take, you could use a combination of other things. Now, one of the issues with Lighthouse is that you sort of want to be flexible enough so that if you spawn up by rogue camp, you could deal with the rogues, and if you spawn down near the chalets, then you can fight it close combat, which is what makes it sort of awkward. People have lots of different approaches for this, either taking a sniper rifle and an SMG, something like, I don't know, a VPO or an M700. You combine that with like an SR2M or an MP7 or something like that. You could go for like a compromise, so use something like the Scar H. I get quite a lot of Scar H's out of the Moonshine. It's probably not worth buying them, but if you do have them just lying around for some reason, like I do, I often have like 2 or 3 just lying about, then you could take that because at least you have full auto for inside. You could put M80 inside that. Another one that I quite like is the AKM series or the 104 or the RD704, that kind of thing, because those bullets are a bit chunkier. You can actually reach out with those around the road camp. They're not as good as 51 NATO, but they are actually decent, and because they're full auto and the recoil is relatively okay, you can also do well around the chalets too. So it's really up to you. It depends on kind of your style and like the play style that you have, whether you prefer really up close and short range SMGs. Like I've been absolutely destroyed in the past by people using vectors in the chalet, but obviously those people are like very hell bent on getting to chalets and being close range. They're definitely not going anywhere near the road camp. So it sort of depends on what you want to do, whether you want to keep yourself flexible or whether you want to run the risk of spawning near road camp and just not really being able to go because of your weapon choice. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the routes around to chalets and the ways to avoid the water treatment facility at first, and also ways to get the other things. So I think that you should basically do a loot run. Don't bother just trying to go for PMC kills, because often if you force the fight on Lighthouse, you end up getting killed. So this spawn, we've actually spawned over by these things here, these kind of seaside holiday cottages. So we're over by this spawn here. And the most notable point on this side is the Merin car key. Now, the Merin car key, it does get a hard rap sometimes by people not really liking it and the fact that the loot isn't great. This thing used to be absolutely insane. So it's this red car right here. This is the stupid rock that we talked about before that you can sit up on and people kind of know where you are. But the Merin car key, it's got 40 uses. It's extremely cheap on the flea market. And sometimes it has nothing and sometimes it has amazing stuff. So it's got a roller in here. That's basically paid for the key already. And sometimes you can get COFDMs in there, Virtexes, whatever. So this one's kind of out on its own. I don't often come over here unless the raid is like completely dead and I think it's already been looted. So from here, we're going to go over to the chalets. So I'm going to path my way now across the road. And this is the only place where if I spawn over at this spawn, this is where I tend to just like go over the road straight away, because I know that other spawns aren't really around here to be able to see me, right? Because the chalet's kind of in the way. There's some spawns over in village, but they're trying to like path their own way. And we're far enough down the road for it not to be a problem. The only thing you have to worry about slightly is that if you're a bear, if you go too far down this road, you might get shot at for the road camp by the rogues themselves, because some of them sit up there on the mounted grenade launchers and they can blast you from there. What we're going to do is go to the northern chalet, or the lower chalet as people call it, and we're going to go and see a little bit of loot in here to be able to get our run started. So as we move in, the first spot that we should be checking, this isn't going to necessarily give you CFDM radios. I don't see much in here ever, but I've been told that this is a spot, and I've seen like rollers and whatever. This chair in particular, I've definitely picked up like high value stuff. Again, not necessarily tech spawns, but some decent things. Check all the chairs just to make sure, but this one in particular is the one where I found things in the past. Then inside the lower chalet, you can either go inside and use the staircase internally, but what I like to do at the moment, and I've been converted to doing this, is going up the outside staircase, because this just gets you in slightly quicker. Now there are two safes inside the chalet, and these are these keys here. This is USEC 2 and USEC 1. USEC Cottage second safe key, USEC Cottage first safe key. And what is unusual about these keys and these safes is that they're not like regular safes. The items that spawn in this safe spawn physically in the safe, and if they're in there, they're already in there. So they're already in there as a loose item. So what you could do is you can crouch over the top, and you can see if there's an item in there or not. So right now, there's no little like white dots. You know, you get a white dot if there's an item nearby. Let's just go and find one. So apparently offline doesn't want to spawn any loot, so I'm just going to throw down the roller so I can show you what I mean. You see this little dot here. So you'll get this little dot when you go near the safe. If you crouch in like this, you'll see the little dot in the middle of your screen. If you don't see it, it means there's no item in there. So when we unlock this, we're going to see there's going to be no item inside the safe at all. So there's nothing in here, and the same goes for the other one. These are very unusual safes. There's only safes like this on Lighthouse and actually also streets. But when you crouch down, you can see a little dot if there's something in there. There we go. So this one does have something inside. We don't know exactly what it is, but we've got this little dot, so we know that it's in there. And this saves you from just using the keys unnecessarily. You don't have to use a key if you don't see the white dots. This one's got an iridium. From here, you can leave out of the back here, vault over this, and then there is a broken box up in here. Most of the broken boxes outside the road camp don't have stuff in them, but around the chalets, some of them do. So the broken box is here, and this can have high-value stuff in it, CFDMs, Virtexes, that kind of thing. And from here, we're going to go up to Upper Chalet. Now, along this top section, this is one of the main routes through the map. So this is why you often find people over here. So if you're trying to find PMC kills, going up and down here is not necessarily a terrible idea, because people use it to move from Upper Chalet up into Village, up towards Road Camp, that kind of thing. And here's the extract that we were talking about before with the Red Rebel and the Paracord. Obviously, in the day here, you can be seen from the Sniper Rock. People typically aren't on top of here looking out over this way. Usually, they're looking kind of the other way, but they can sometimes be up there. So just be a bit careful. It's hard for them to kill you, especially if you're running. But the only thing you need to worry about at this point is that if you're running here, you can start to be heard from the Upper Chalet. You do have to be careful. Getting into Upper Chalet, it's kind of two ways of doing it, really. One way you can peek your head over here. This is kind of obvious. They sort of might know that you might be doing this, especially if they can hear you. And so you can look out over here. There's a lot of angles to try and cover. People can be kind of like around the garage area, up in the actual main building there. A lot of people aren't going to be actually out in this section. Sometimes people are up on this roof because you can get up on this from the other side. So you just have to be a little bit careful about that. So I don't really like this that much. You can either jump over, which is really exposed, or open through the door here. There's quite a lot of fights happen around this. It's actually quite well covered on the way in because you've got this like large generator or something. This allows you to get into the garage area and start to clear it. But again, there's a lot of windows and stuff. People can pop out and pretty nasty. My preferred way in is over these rocks here. Sometimes a little bit awkward, so I tend to try and vault up to here and then jump my way across there. And you can peek your way into the chalet here. So there's actually a lot less angles now. Can't really be seen by too many places. The Sniper Rock, maybe, but if you're quick about it, like nobody from down here can really get you. So you can cut the angle in here. I did die to somebody literally sat here the other day. And this is the unfortunate thing. If you're just not there at chalets first, people can just wait for you. And with the wood audio, you're very, very obvious. But I've had other fights here which have been pretty good. And you can vault in through this window, which is the way that I like to do it. Now, the loot inside this one, you want to be looking on the chair, on the other chair, up on the desk itself, between these two things. Down here, sometimes there's something. Up here and on this chair as well. And those are some good spots. In the garage itself, you've got hidden in this kind of shirt thing. On this shelf and up here and around, you just need to check that. In the main building of the garage, we've got stuff either here or here or here. It's like Virtex's, VPXs, COFDMs. This is another one where COFDM radios can typically be found. Not so much down here. There is a safe over in this other one, but it's not going to give you any tech items, I don't think. It's this box here, the one on the top, so you can loot that. And then there's one more space that I've seen other people talk about, but I've never seen anything here, which is down in this bedroom here on the next floor, over on the right-hand side, over on this table here. Now, I've never seen anything here myself, but you know what? Maybe you will eventually be able to find something there. One extra place that I didn't mention before is upstairs. This place isn't going to have like COFDM radios, I don't think, but you can get like bitcoins and stuff like that. What you need to do is you need to press yourself into these shelves, because sometimes stuff is just impossible to find and really difficult to see, and you're only going to know it's there because of the little white dot. So press your nose into these shelves. This box over here, I've never seen anything there. I just don't see anything in these seats anymore, but these used to be spawn points back in the day. The one that is still is this one here, this cardboard box, and stuff can literally spawn on the floor underneath it. Bitcoins, Veritas picks, that kind of thing. So make sure that you crouch right down with your gun right in there and look for that little white dot. If it's there, then you know that there's an item there and you will be able to get it. You just need to move around a bit. Try not to spend too much time up here though, because you can just get sort of stuck in here. It's difficult to get out if you do get caught in, especially if it's by a team that is bigger than yourself. Then the next set of spaces you want to check is down here. You can either go smash this window out and go through here, or just walk around, because there's an opening there and an opening there if you don't want people to hear you as easily. On this body, there is loot that is hidden. You want to check like all the way along the body itself, because sometimes it's like hidden inside it. Vault your way out of here. There's some med spawns on there. And then the other tech spawns that could potentially be found is up here on this box, or on the floor around there in this area. And the other one is on the other side in another broken box down in this box here. So there's one there. Now there is one more tech spawn all the way over here. I'm going to show you quickly. I'll just sprint to it and fast forward the video so I can show you where it is. I typically only hit this stuff if I'm kind of in the area, otherwise it's kind of a long shot. You're also clearly very exposed down here, so normally I wouldn't go straight away because you could be seen from all over here. People might well just be camping up here waiting for somebody to be in the road. There's also spawns over this side. People might be waiting up on the rocks, that kind of thing. So, but this box can spawn stuff as well. One last place that I like to check is over in the main village. So again, I'm going to speed up the video and we're going to go there right now. So one of the spawns that people say there is in this, I think people can normally call this the mayor's house. I'm usually quite bad at callouts because playing solo, I typically don't need to know them. So people are always talking about this box in here, and in this corner. In there. Apparently there could be GPUs and other stuff in there. I've literally never seen anything in there, but people always talk about it. There is, interestingly, there's a room up here. If you were wondering where the final ref key is, it's in this room. This is the ref key that you get on ref level 4 in Lighthouse. It took the place of this room, so you can't get in there anymore. There used to be guides that there was good loot in there, but obviously that's gone now. So the other places over in the village are the hillside house key, which is another one that I think is underrated, probably. It's not amazing because it doesn't give you that much loot that often, but it can be pretty decent. This could be gotten to through a few different ways. It's in the village itself. Now, the one thing that I would say is be very, very, very careful if you haven't scouted this top section up here, because this is the end of the path between village and the chalets. People love sitting up here and waiting for you to just kind of go towards hillside house because they want to shoot you. Normally, I go through this here. There's a gate there as well that you can use, but people can literally be anywhere up here. And unless you've cleared this out, even if you have cleared it out, just be extremely careful. This is hillside house, the key. While you're unlocking it, people just love to shoot you, even while you're walking into it. And in here, there's a couple of spots. There's a jacket, obviously, up there. And the places you need to check are underneath this table here and this section there, where you can get some high-value things like acers and that sort of stuff. Inside the main room, you've got a couple of places. You know, just check around everywhere, on the chair, on the table. Mainly, it's inside here, inside the sink. You usually find stims on there, if anything. But just check around, make sure there's nothing else loose around in this particular building. Then there's another building over here, which is either the gamer's house or the red brick house or something like that. Depends on what you want to call it with your callouts. It's this one here. This can be accessed from the other side as well. If you come off this cliff, you can actually get down onto this kind of little ridge line and then just jump over. It doesn't actually let you jump most of the time if you run there, but you can get onto this umbrella so you don't end up like stuck down below. But this one has got a couple of rooms in here, and you can get COFDM radios and tech items on here, around here somewhere, around the desk. And the other room is this one here, where you can, again, get them around here. I haven't seen anything in this for a while, so it does feel like the loot spawns in this area have really been diminished, but it's probably still worth checking, just in case, because they used to be good spawns back in the day. There's one final one that I've seen on other people's videos as well, which is up in here. I've, again, not seen anything in this particular house of any high value. Never found anything really, really juicy in here, but people say that apparently it can be a spawn. So I'm sure people have seen something here once upon a time, so it's probably still worth checking. which is around there. There is a duffel here too. Duffels can spawn anything from that particular map, so you may as well give it a go. But yeah, apparently here you can get some things around as well if you're just looking to loot. So this time, let's head up into Chalet from this side. This is as if we spawned kind of up here, and we want to move our way towards Chalet. So you go up this rock ridge line here. You can see why I'm saying you got to be careful, because people can literally be anywhere up here, and they will hear you running around. If you're going down to Hillside House, which is this one, you could be shot at the doorway, you could be shot at the little entrance, and yeah, I get shot at here constantly all the time. So you've got to be super careful about people camping up here. You can even be up on this ridge line as well, like even higher up, to get a bit better vantage point. Also, tripwires as well. Got to be careful in this area because it's very, very linear. One of the biggest death traps about this particular section is this part here. There's a couple of bushes that are tricky to get past, and obviously you can only walk through bushes. So what you kind of want to do is like move in as far as you can, and then jump through this final set of bushes to minimize the amount of time that you're walking at 0 speed, even though it makes you a little bit louder. People are going to know you're coming anyway. From this side on our right is the lower chalets again, so we're not going to go back into there. I typically find that people don't fight around lower chalets that much, so we should spend most of our time thinking about upper chalet. And if you want to do quick loot runs, you can just ignore all the other stuff. You can ignore Merrin Key, you can ignore Hillside House, you can ignore even the lower chalet if you really, really want to, and just focus on the upper chalet, because it's where most of the fights happen. If you're doing Punisher Part 4, that is where I would strongly advise you spend most of your time. Bring a Red Rebel and a Paracord with you, go into upper chalet, loot it if there's nobody there, and if somebody is there, then fight them and try and get your kill. And it also means that you're going to have a more fair fight. You're not just going to be sniped from somewhere. Like, yes, if you're one of the last people to turn up, you can just get killed from a dark corner, but that's Tarkov, right? So as I said on the way in, I much prefer fighting over on this side to jump your way in and move in through the window. Audio around these buildings is very, very tricky, and it's very complicated because there are many floors and the occlusion zones aren't particularly great in here, and people can turn up through this bedroom and those things. Just make sure that you know all of the ways to move around so that you can come out through this bedroom over here. If you're entering in from the other side, I hate going in through the courtyard, and I much prefer coming kind of over these rocks. So if you're outside and you're coming in from this direction, I typically come around this way, come over this barrier here, over this barricade, and then enter in from underneath, because it gives you a little bit more control over the fight rather than just entering into the courtyard. And people typically loot it from top to bottom as well, and so this staircase is what you need to worry about, and or coming up this side. You can still get in some interesting ways without giving yourself away too much. You can actually get in through this window here if you want to just be fighting strictly inside. So just make sure that you know all the ways in and out and around and about. So yeah, as I said, if you're going for PMC runs, then you can basically turn up to Chalet, check the spots, and then run out of the Red Rebel extract if you don't find anybody. This usually should net you some decent loot at least, and you could just hit that over and over and over and over again rather than trying to just futilely chase for PMC kills. So, next up, clearly you can play the chalets either in the day or the night. I usually like playing in the day because I prefer fighting people in the day. You don't have to take special equipment or anything like that. But going at nighttime is a lot safer if you're looking for items. It's better probably for items than it is for PMC kills. Day is probably better for PMC kills. Now, obviously here, we're in Lighthouse at night. So what can you do at nighttime? Well, clearly the first one is NVGs. This is a pair of GP NVGs, which allows you to see a lot better. But sometimes if you're playing Scav, you can play Scav at night and you want to actually be able to see. Now, there's a special feather filter that a lot of people are using, and I've been using it recently. I kind of held off because I hate fussing around with my settings and things like that in between games, but I started begrudgingly doing it, and it is genuinely a lot better. So this is what it looks like normally in game, and what people are doing is they basically put the feather filter on up to 100%, and they put brightness up to 100% at the same time. And I think Pestley puts all of these things up to 100 or something. Maybe he puts saturation as well up to 100. I'm not 100% sure. But either which way, if you put feather up to 100%, this takes it to black and white, and then you put the brightness up to 100% as well. And this is without any MVGs. This is with no MVGs at all. This is so much better than it is normally. Now, today it is moonlit, so you will be able to see a little bit better. If we come down off this rock and go kind of into the shadows or something, I'll show you kind of what that looks like. Here's kind of the shadow of the mountain with the feather filter on. If we just turn it off for a second, we'll just actually just see what it looks like without it. So we put brightness back to normal. And we're going to put, actually, maybe we'll just do it on visualize. So this is what it was before. I'm going to put brightness back down to 0. And we're going to take the feather filter and turn it off. And you see, you can hardly see anything. Even I can hardly see anything. And I've got actually the gamma increased on my monitor and also on the video recording. So it's very difficult to actually see. So when we turn this back on again, you will actually suddenly be able to see everything. It's like bit brightness and then feather. It just increases the contrast. It just makes everything so much easier to actually see what's going on. Now, the other one that is quite surprising is even if you're using MVGs, there is still an argument for doing this. So if I turn this off for a second, it's just so that we can get a comparison between the two. Turn off the feather, turn the MVGs on, so you can actually see a little bit better now with the MVGs. but we're going to go back in to post effects again and visualize with the brightness at full and the feather filter on. And a lot of people have been asking on stream, like, what is this exactly? What is this, like, monochrome MVGs? But it looks so much better. Like, yeah, this is without it, and it's definitely better than without using this filter. And here's with it on. I've got SJ6 pulsing, that's why we've got the, like, black rings coming around the outside. But feather just makes the night raids a lot more pleasant. I don't even like looking at the green particularly. And so we're going to whiz ourselves over to the road camp, and I definitely recommend playing the road camp at night. If you do want to do the runs around the road camp, then really just do them at night. The vision range on the rogues is so much shorter. It is 10 times easier to do stuff. Now, there are really two methods to think about with the road camp. One of them is going in on the west side. This is a bit tricky because there are two gunners on the front that you need to kill before you even get in there, and there's just sort of less options over that side, but it is possible. I'll show you that very quickly just so you can get an idea. If you're a bear, or you are aggroed by the rogues, so you need to play 3 straight raids without hitting the rogues for them to go back to normal with you as a USEC. But if you're bear, they'll always be angry with you. And if you're aggroed as a PMC, the rogues will shoot at you with a grenade launcher, like even out to sort of this range, which is actually insane. So there's the one house up there, and then there's another machine gunner over on this side. And you need to take both of these guys out if you want to come this way. Otherwise, you'll die when you come along the beach. You can come along the edge of the beach, and then you can go up on these rocks here. This is much less favoured than the other route. Most of the other routes use the bridge over into the road camp because of the fence that runs along the side. And we'll go there now, and I'll show you why. One thing that I think is worth pointing out is that as a scav, every single raid you play as a scav, even if you shot them before, you can run into the road camp without them shooting at you until you get to a certain distance. So you can actually come this way as a scav over the water, and this way is shallow enough that a player can walk through. And as a PMC, you probably don't want to do that because, you know, you're right in front of the machine guns and that kind of thing. So you want to be over this way, but it just gives you an option as a scav. I have found playing scav on Lighthouse way easier than it is playing PMC, partly because the rogues, they just won't aggro you unless you shoot them in the back of the head and then they're aggro to you. But also you can just wander around the road camp and other scavs aren't shooting at you, and it's just 10 times easier. So anyway, if you do need your PMC kills and you're trying to loot at the same time and you do want to do the road camp, then you want to be using this bridge. This comes out of the village. This is the one that takes you down to this corner where people typically get started on the rogue farming runs, but also in order to get some of the items that are available on Lighthouse that you might want to get, like the COFDMs and the Virtex that we talked about before. We run over the second bridge and we head into the road camp itself. And basically, this fence is your friend. From this side, you don't actually need to kill these two rogues. The one on the big machine gun and the one on the grenade launcher. You don't actually have to do that. And you can let these people just deal with other PMCs or scavs as they come in. So you can just like run along this fencing instead. And at night time, as I said, the rogues just really won't target you anywhere near as much. From here, you can take out this rogue if you want to. Building 1 is the westmost building, the one over there. This one is building 1. Building 2 is this one here. And building 3 is this one here. It does actually say on them. You can just kind of peek through and see the rogues. And there's one on this corner here. And then there is one rogue on this corner here as well. And you can kill both of those. I can get this guy at least. You can kill both of those either from this little hole, or I did it the other day over from this hole, which apparently is a bit more dangerous, but it seemed to work for me. You can get a slightly better peek on this guy from over this side. Your mileage may vary. And once you've killed those two, then you can kind of go into the first building, which is building 3. And we could go and check our first loot spot inside the rogue camp. I'm usually pretty reluctant to do this because it's just so much harder. The rogue camp is technically quite straightforward, so long as there's not other people around. But if there's people sniping up on the rocks and stuff, this is a lot less popular because there's claymores up there now. But there are still people who like to snipe up there, and it just makes your life difficult if you meet other PMCs. And it's under much less controlled conditions. And so I feel that the chances of dying to a rogue are quite high, or a player scav or something like that. You're better off fighting PMCs elsewhere on the map. I'm going to take the MVGs off. So there's a couple of spawn points in here, one on there and one on here. It can be like high value tech loot spawns. Then in the main area, you've got the broken box, which is just here, where there can be stuff. Inside this room, just opposite it, you have to check around here. There could be things around in these boxes or on the tables, in the boxes here. Just make sure you check around in the whole bedroom. There can be good ammo as well. SP6 just on the bed there, which is quite nice. And then the broken box up here, in this corner, is another good one. Now we're going to move out into building 2. And this is the reason why you wanted to take out the easternmost gunner on the building 2, because you can't get out of this door with him there. They will be sat right here on this gun if you don't do it. And the problem is that these days, back in the day, you used to be able to shoot through this. You actually can't do this anymore. So you used to be able to just like corner peek and they wouldn't see you. But they will now shoot this now if you're aggroed, and they will shoot you straight through here. There are rogues on top of this building. I kind of didn't mention this before, but there are rogues on top of here. And typically when you run into the building, the rogues on building 3 will actually come and attack you. So this is the other way into the GPU room. And what you could do is you can just stay in this room and just wait for them to come. Because usually they'll run down the front staircase, and they'll come in through the back, and then they'll just like pile up by this door. There's usually 2, and you can just kill them here, take their stuff, and then carry on. It's so scuffed. So the main points on this building, you probably need to take out this gunner over here on this side of the building before you can run up this staircase. But up here, there are some good loot spawns that you should check. There's also lots of ammo on all of the roofs around the road camp. So you can get M855A1, M62, that kind of thing. Obviously, this thing is quite a bit more exposed up here. But what you want to do is check inside of this building. This tent is really where the high value stuff is. Check in the boxes, check on the table, run in here, check on the floor, check inside this little box here, round here. On this table, sometimes there's a weapon box underneath, so there's quite a bit of loot around here. There's some loose stuff on top of this crate here, so just make sure that you check all of those. When you're up here, if you haven't taken out this guy, which I mean is ill-advised, but if you haven't taken out this guy, usually he just doesn't even move, so you can just shoot him in the back of the head. There is another guy over here potentially, so make sure that you kill both of these. Don't get surprised. There can be 3 people up here, 1 on this gun, 1 on this gun, and 1 over on that side. I wouldn't linger too long on here because you're pretty obvious and there's only one way down. One thing that I will mention is there are secret ways to get down from each of the roofs. On this side, over on the far southeastern corner, there's like an antenna dish sticking out from the side of the building. If you go over to the side of the building and look over, you can see it. You can basically like drop your bag first and then fall onto that. On this side, there is an AC unit, which is this one here. Again, you're going to hurt yourself a little bit, but you can fall onto that, drop your bag down, and then fall down onto this crate afterwards. That means that you'll hurt yourself the least. You can fall onto this AC unit first, and then this one next. Obviously, you want to painkiller up before you do that, before you break both of your legs. But from here, we're going to go over and move to building number 1. Here, there may well still be somebody at the front if you didn't kill them already. Usually somebody else takes them out, but sometimes they're still up there. So you might find that you need to go and kill them first. Either you go up the stairs here after you've taken out all these other rogues so no one's going to shoot at you, and you could just run up and shoot him in the back of the head. Otherwise, you could take him from long distance as you come into the camp in the first place, depending on what you want to do. So over here, there's some spawns on there. There's a spawn in here, which is the broken box over on that side. All the way down the other end, you can definitely find some good stuff. I found a Virtex here the other day, so make sure that you check all of it out. There was a big sledgehammer up here, and then there was also a Virtex next to it. So over on these cardboard boxes, you can definitely find something. I found the Virtex exactly here. So there's definitely a loot spawn over there still. And then we're going to come out of here. This is the reason why you need this gunner to not be there, because he is going to shoot you and make your life a misery after you get to about this point here. So there's a broken box there. You can check in for stuff. So there's an L1 stim. So this is a high value spot for various things. We run over to this side of the shacks. There is another box over here, which can have good stuff in it as well. Virtex, COFDM radios, that kind of thing. And then there's a couple more actually in the rogue camp itself, which can be pathed through from this way. You come out to here. The first one is over there, this box here. This can sometimes have stuff in it. Then there is the next box over here. Oh, did you see the little white dots? There's something in here. There we go. We've got a Veritas pick. Impossible to see, but there's a Veritas pick in there. So this is a high value loot spawn for sure. Then you've got down here by this vehicle and the tent there. Just outside of that, you have got this box over here, which is one that can have some stuff in it in there. Up on the actual silo itself, you can have stuff spawning in this one. Now, if you left these guys alone, this can be a little bit hairy, so only do this if you've killed the rogues already, otherwise you might end up with them running at you. But there's a spawn point over here underneath this particular tower, so this is where one of the rogues will sit with the grenade launcher. And there's ammo up here sometimes, it's like decent ammo and whatnot. But down here, there's a special spawn point here in this little box there. I said make sure that you watch out for this guy as well on the machine gun. Make sure you don't accidentally get killed over there. I think I might have missed one. I think there's one in here, potentially on this table, next to the vehicle. Can be some decent stuff on there. This is actually a nice scope. Not necessarily a high value loot spawn, but... And then 2 more to check. There's inside this tent here. around the corner, we've got one of these little crates where something can spawn. They don't seem to spawn in there that often, but sometimes. Don't think you can get anything in there. And then another one that I've seen, definitely people talking about, is the one up here. I've never found anything in this one in particular, but up here on the top over on this corner, things can spawn apparently. So yes, the road camp is hard and difficult. If I was you and you want to try and prioritize your survival, then don't try to hit every single spot in one run. If you do, you're probably just going to die at some point, either to a player scav or a player that's just like waiting around for shootable in heaven kills or something like that. Typically, if you're looking for PvP, as I said, I'd rather go to the chalets in the daytime, just do quick runs, try to loot the spots that you can. If there's nobody there, then just leave and reset. If you want to do it at night time, then that's fine, but that's typically better for loot running and getting the Virtexes and COFDM radios, that kind of thing, because it's typically less populated. And then the rogue camp, if you like getting lots of XP and you like the idea of killing the rogues and learning the route, then that's the one that I recommend going through on that far side. And the other way is honestly just to play a lot of Scav. Because of this Gary Zon event recently, I played a lot more Scav Lighthouse than I ever have done in the past, and it really helped me just build my confidence with being in the rogue camp, fighting the rogues, like how they move, just like watching them and seeing exactly how their AI moves. Because when you're playing as PMC, you're trying to fight off the rogues, you're trying to fight off the other scavs, you're trying to fight off other players. Whereas a scav, a lot of the time, you can just wander around in the middle of the road camp and just kind of witness what happens, and you get to a better appreciation than with PMC, where you're very limited on where you're actually able to go. So playing scav has honestly really helped me on Lighthouse, as I've been trying to learn some of these pathways and routes, and I hope that this helps you as well. So as always, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as usual, have fun in your raids.